What's up, everybody? It's Julian. Today you requested it, and I'm going to be showing you how to do Hardbounce techno like Franck and Fenrick. To go along this video, you can grab this template at the top of the description. Make sure to grab that. It helps support me, and it's something you can do right now to make the best track of your life today. It's a really solid template that you can use to make a ton of tracks out of. Links at the top of the description. Make sure to grab that, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 155 BPM, and the first thing we got here is our kick. So what's happening here is we got this trance kick. I've pitched it so it's in tune with the bass. I think that's pretty important for this stuff. Like if I pitch this up, you can hear it. Right, they fit together, but then if you put it back, like this would be the default pitch, which isn't correct, and then listen. When I bring it in tune, it just hits a little bit better with that bass. And that's just real push and pull between the kick and bass is really important with this style. So make sure you tune your kicks. Then we got some multi-band distortion. I'm using an audio effect rack here, and what it's doing is we got one chain, which is just our lows and mids, which is the loudest one, obviously. And then we have just the highs, and then they're being distorted. So the overdrive is just distorting the whole kick. Right, it's 100% wet, but I've got the filter on already. And then we're taking just the high end from that. So yeah, this works because basically everything you want to kind of really smack about your kick is in the high end. Like the actual smack and that transient is all up there. So you just distort that, and you're basically bringing that out a little bit more and intensifying it while keeping the bass intact. Because if you just drop distortion on the whole thing, you're just gonna get a big fart noise, right? But if you take this off, you can hear it makes a big difference. Here's without it, with it. So yeah, if you want that really smacky kick, this is the way to do it with just Ableton stuff. And then we got a little subcut, just cutting out a little bit of bass and converting it to mono. Then we got our bass line. So this is just playing E. You'll notice it's an eighth note, and it is pretty long, but it doesn't go all the way to the end of the bar. So it kind of fits in with that kick. It's like you have a millisecond of space there, right? We have two layers to the bass. We got this, and then this. So the main layer, it's a saw wave, and then it's also the sync digital. They're at the same octave, and you can see the sync digital is turned down a little bit. I've got this envelope on that as well. Just moving the wavetable position. You really mostly hear the square. But this adds a nice bit of texture. A lot of what these guys do in these tracks is exploring what can you do over top of that kind of square saw plucked bass that we all know, right? So this is a good way to play with the formula. We got another envelope here on this filter frequency. Cutting some sub and converting it to mono. And then we got this guy. So this is just meant to kind of be like a stab over top of it. With this style, you can play around with this a lot because it is kind of exploring what you can do with that formula, So instead of just having our normal now there's some texture and some ear candy in there, right? So this is just this one quad saw wavetable. Filter envelope, a little bit of an envelope on that wavetable as well. Right, so you're kind of getting this angry stab. And then we got the noise unison at 49%, but the voice is all the way up. That also helps because it really separates these two. Right, when we get rid of that, it kind of pushes them together, right? But then when you bring that back in, you got the separation between layers. Then we've got a little reverb, which you can see has a really, really short decay in size. And then I've just got the pre-delay kind of making it bounce off of the sound. Pretty high, dry, wet, honestly. But again, this sound's all about texture. I got a little bit of overdrive. Here's without. And with. We're cutting out all the low ends so it'll fit over the other bass and not have any problems. And I have this auto pan here, which is kind of doing like a fake sidechain. Since we have the reverb and stuff, and this one kind of rings out more, I still wanted it to be under control of the kick. Like if we get rid of that, it still works. I think it grooves better if you keep it all getting out of the way when the kick hits, right? Then we got our drums. Pretty standard ravey sort of stuff. I think with these you really just want like a lot of high-end elements, and then the bass, and then the bass layer is kind of like all of what's happening in the mid-range and low end. You know, if I had too much percussion that was like here, kind of in that, like right in the mid-range, I think it would really clash against that wavetable 3 there. Like you see how that kind of all fits together, right? So we just got a nice fat hi-hat. I've cut the length on that so it's really short. We got a clap. So it's starting like this. Pretty aggressive clap already. Is from one of my sample packs. And then I've got a reverb really short. And then we're distorting it. It does help the groove. And all these little things, like just adding texture to these sounds, it gives it more attitude and more kind of like feeling, you know, like this stuff could be quite boring if you don't have a lot of texture going on. I think it's not just about making the kind of trance techno thing. It's also like, what can we do with that and how can we kind of make it weird, you know? Then we've got these layers. Just 2 house loops. Right, being high passed. These are for my sample packs. And then we got this little, just a little closed hi-hat. All of those are going into this auto pan, so here's without. You can hear it's like way too loud and it's fighting the mix. But then you bring this in. And it all sits in the perfect place because it's getting ducked by the kick nicely. And that's really the sound you want. Then we got some background little vocal effects. Right, so what's going on here is I just got these 3 vocal samples. This one was actually like one of those lower kind of like trap sort of things. But then you pitch it up and you get kind of a cooler. Right, I got that going through some reverb. This one is like a much longer sound too. You can see I literally dragged the start time forward so we get a really punchy like kind of hit out of it. And then I'm playing with the note length to get some cool, right, like having those be different lengths. You get a lot out of one sound, right? And then we got some delay on that. And then this last one is just a little like, you know, much more chill, ambient, and that's going through some reverb. And then those are all just going through a high-pass filter so they don't get in the way of the bass or anything. Then we've got our first lead. Right, so super old school, sort of like evil, hardcore kind of lead. These leads are pretty simple. I think what you're going to do is really just not have that many notes, right? I mean, it's really just like that. Playing with like the root note, like whatever the bass line's playing. And then going 1 up, right? And that gives you like some cool kind of darkness against the bass line. And then this, the donor. You know, it's very much more percussive. Also playing with the note lengths on this too, like you see. Just having that little be shorter. It's a tiny detail, but if I make it longer, you know, it doesn't groove quite as well. So this one's made with wavetable. What it is basically a super saw, right? We got 2 saw waves. They're super detuned though, because you can see one is there, and then one I got all the way up at 42 cents away from the original wave. There's nothing really going on with the filters, right? And then we just have a unison on classic, and it's up pretty high, but not too high. You know, you don't always just want to just crank it, right? that can be cool, but I think there's a lot of texture and a lot of different sounds to get by just really actually taking some time and finding where this sits best. You know, with this one, you can hear the detune. It's already detuned anyway from what I'm doing with the oscillators, so it's like really just finding that perfect spot where it sits over the bass. It's not too out of tune, but it also kind of maybe has a little bit more definition. We got a bit of overdrive, right? That's 100% wet and it's all the way up. It's just a heavy distortion because we want this to be a bit darker and a bit more textured. I got some reverb and then a high pass filter, and then we're side chaining it to the kick. And the reason I like to sidechain this instead of doing the auto pan sidechain like I did with the drums is because there's going to be a point, like if you're arranging your track, right, there's going to be a point where you don't want any drums playing and you just make a break and maybe it's going to be like just the leads playing. So if you do that and you have the auto pan, then you have to automate that to turn off or else it's going to still sound sidechain. If you do it this way, then it's just natural and the sidechain goes away. Then we got our little screech pattern. So I was trying to get those crazy Fenrick screeches that he's got going on. Basically what it is it's a screech, but it's a little bit different. It's like you kind of have to think about the MIDI you're going to play while you're making it. And then I also think that it's less distorted and less reverb, right? So for the MIDI, you can see it's really crazy. It's a lot of playing with the note lengths. It's really just one note across different octaves, though. That's the thing. As much as it might seem like super intense to make something like this, I mean, it's really just one note across different octaves, but you're doing a lot with that note, right? Like, and that also goes into the patch because you're going to have this pitch envelope moving your pitch. And so if you have a longer note, you really hear it. And then you can still have these where it just goes da-da-da-da, and you don't even get the pitch envelope at all, right? And then there's like some glides over here, which that's also playing around because now you have your pitch envelope is moving the pitch, but then you're also gliding down. So it's like all these different things are happening, and it can sound really crazy when you hear those tracks, but you know, it's basically just you jumping around a lot of crazy 16th notes and having like a good rhythm. And that also goes back to like I think you have to have your groove already laid out, and then, you know, you can see what works well with that. Now, for the sound, this is a pretty simple screech, right? I mean, you can see I got 2 saw waves. There's not even any unison. That's another thing I noticed. It's not a lot of unison with these. And then we're going minus 50 on one and plus 50 on another. So even if I turn off the pitch envelope, like it's already a super detuned rave siren kind of sound, right? But then there's a pitch envelope, so it looks like this. It's just really short, and I've shaped it like to just give us a nice little like that. And then it's only up a little bit. That's the secret to these. And like all screeches, is actually just a tiny bit of pitch envelope. If you start trying to go like that, you know, it's not really that thing anymore. This is about just getting a little and not like a lot. It's subtle, right? Then it's literally just a high pass filter. I've got this reverb is turned off, you're not even getting that, and then just side chaining, right? It's a really dry, simple sound, actually. It's more about what you're doing with the MIDI and how that interacts with what's happening in the synth. And then we also have this little screech which just hits, right? Because I wanted to have that go dona there with this one, but for some reason, like, the way I set up this pitch envelope on the first one didn't really, you just couldn't really get it to do it. Even if I was trying to, like, do a glide like that, you see, you don't really get that. So I just duplicated the patch and I changed it a bit. So this is that same super detune, although 1 is back at 0. I've got a pitch envelope still, right? But you can see it's like up a little bit higher and it just goes straight up. It doesn't do any kind of weird stuff. We got noise unison, and this is a good trick too with these, is actually using the unison, right? But only using 2 voices. So it's just 2 voices detuning against each other. So it still sounds like it's not super unison out, but yet it is also. Right, it's kind of a nice way to do it. And then we just have a high pass filter and a sidechain. Like I was saying, I think with those Fenrick screeches, he's really not doing too much processing to it. I think it's just a very dry, simple synth side chain it, get the low end out of the way, and move forward. It's all about the MIDI. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more Hardbounce tutorials in the comments for sure. Definitely a cool style to make. I enjoy this stuff. Make sure to grab this template at the top of the description. Really helps support me. And it's also something you can do right now to make a better track today. There's not many things you can do, but if you download this template, you really can be like night and day with your tracks immediately. Check it out. Try the template for yourself. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.